So for me, one of the reasons why it's an absolute no-brainer to study Vedic texts if you have a problem with self-control is because they knew hundreds of thousands of years ago the axiom in which you lose that battle first comes from here. It first comes through betraying your moral pillars. And in this way, we need to recognize and come to the reconciliation that if we are going to have any chance in battling this demon, this desexualized culture, this licentious, promiscuous behavior that is running through toxic sludge, through the heart, through the veins, as it were, of the body that is our Western culture, then we need to do our due diligence in screening the mind. So the term brahmacharya is one I'm thinking that you are all familiar with if you have been watching me for a while. And a lot of my knowledge does come from those very ancient texts. Hindu religion fundamentally, but again, I'm not ideologically possessed by Hinduism. I am a free agent, as it were. I like to teach and learn the values from all different religions in that respect. So brahmacharya. Now, the interesting aspect of brahmacharya is that they are very, very strict. And the reason that they are very, very strict is because they recognize that the moment you lose to the demon of lust is not by going onto these websites, it's not by engaging in any kind of licentious behavior, but it happens because you betray yourself in your mind first. That's where adultery happens in that way, is because you have indulged a fantasy. I have this post from Ancient Technology here that kind of expounds upon this point with a little more detail, and I'll color in the gaps as we go. So this was an attempt to really integrate SR and other good habits into this individual's life. And he discovered that the first pillar to this actualization is in eliminating mental fantasy and lust, equally what the Vedic texts have been telling us for thousands and thousands of years. And he mentions, again, there are many posts on this, but if you are fantasizing and thinking about girls and sex, you are inevitably going to fail. You've already betrayed yourself. You've already committed sin in the mind, and you are no longer a brahmachari. You're no longer walking the path of God if you continue to pretend with your practices, with the actions that you do, that fundamentally you're not a sinner, but in your mind you are indulging and ensconcing and poisoning and diluting your thoughts with ideas that are unbecoming of the grandest nature of yourself. So he's put in bold here, and I completely agree with this. And part of the impetus for me sharing this with you is because of my congruence with this knowledge, is that a relapse doesn't start when you go onto that site. It starts way before that, starts long before that, probably days or weeks before in your mind. Maybe you go back to a memory that you had that had a particular emotional charge, a vibrancy to that emotion, to that memory, and that emotion was lower in nature, was lust in nature, and you start poisoning your very nervous system with that particular emotion. So we have to recognize in a biochemical or a neurochemical sense that the body cannot tell the difference between an imagined event and an event that is happening in real time. What does that mean? That means if you fantasize in something, if you do go back to a memory, then the body believes that it's happening to it in real time. It doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know how to distinguish between imagination and reality. When you're dreaming, it's believing that dream is real. That's when you wake up from a nightmare with sweat, right? Because the body is conditioned to believe what the mind is telling it. In that way, your mind is like a compass. It is the leader, as it were. It's the captain of the ship. And if the captain of the ship is not looking on where it's going, but it's indulging ideas of fantasy, then invariably you are going to crash, and it's going to be a terrible crash. So a relapse doesn't start when you go on that site. It starts long before, probably days or weeks before, in your mind. From the time that you start thinking about it and desiring it, you're on the path to relapse. I repeat, a relapse starts in the mind. I'd strongly advise you read the last two sentences again slowly and really appreciate what it means. Don't entertain any sexual thoughts. It makes SR much easier. So what is one of the key practical habits that you can do in order to have better jurisdiction over the mind? For me, the easy combination has to be pranayama, which is control of breath, and meditation, which is control of mind. In fact, mind is influenced by breath. Breath is actually the mediator between the conscious and the subconscious. So if you can better have jurisdiction over how you move from conscious to unconscious, or forebrain to limbic, which by the way is the pathway that you move when you relapse. You start off in logic, you start in forebrain, prefrontal cortex, and then you move into limbic, you move into animal, you move into reactivity. So if you're able to better control and build more neural connections over that particular mechanism, then you can have better control in staying in prefrontal cortex state, then limbic, then reactive, then animal, then carnal, then lust, and all these things that we want to mitigate in our lives. So it has to be breath work, it has to be in meditation. You will never have a deeper meditation after you've done breath work. I've been meditating for, I'd probably say since 2018, and I thought I was getting deep meditations until I started breath work. You do pranayama, you do some kind of spinal breathing, such as the spinal breathing in my Patreon, for 3 rounds and go into a meditation. That meditation will be deeper than a meditation you do for an hour. It's like pouring petrol on a fire. It has profound implications. You can get a lot deeper, and you can observe your consciousness from this otherworldly witness perspective, which again is the seat of the soul, it's the Atman, it's the Pneuma, it's the breath behind the breath. Number 2, build an identity of a person with good habits. I agree with this completely. You're not trying to destroy or break a habit. You're simply trying to create an identity of an individual who doesn't have the habits that you are not wanting. Have you ever noticed it's easier to implement good habits when you're already doing good habits? For me, I start my morning with a run. Once I've done my run, it's easier for me to sit and meditate for a little while. A classic favorite tweet of mine is, win the morning. Win the morning. Once you win the morning, the rest of the day is easy. If you can do something difficult in the morning that requires a little bit of control, which requires you to use your prefrontal cortex with more intention, with more deliberation, with more conviction, get in the cold ocean. I've got the ocean on my doorstep over here. Sometimes I jump in there, but usually it is a hard resistance workout. Fasted. I'll have a little bit of cardio, a little bit of a walk / jog to the gym, and I will get the hard thing done, and usually the end of the day is easier. It's like breaking a stallion. It's like breaking an animal. You need to, in the same way or in a not too dissimilar way, you are breaking your body. You are whipping it and you are going, you are under my control today and you'll follow my lead. The same way you train a dog, you train your puppy, you tell your puppy not to, again, piss in the house. You smother it with the piss and you discipline it. In a hopefully not too similar way, this is what you do with yourself. You start to create habits, you start to create parameters around yourself that allow you to better control your body, control the animal reflex, the sexual reflex, whatever you want to call it. So for me, he does a morning run, he sits and meditates. That is easy since I already exercise and meditate. It's easier for me to choose a healthy meal since I've already done a healthy meal. The compound effect, this is a very powerful principle. And I believe it's about the evidence I give myself of a person with good habits. One of the mantras, and we'll come to mantras in just a moment, that I repeat in my mind whenever I'm posed with a difficult decision is, what would the best version of me do? What would the greatest version of me do? What would the highest version of me do? And that way you take your emotion out of it and you can proceed with logic, and then the answer becomes evidently clear. Do not allow yourself to mull too much in that process of decision making. Act with conviction that is congruent and consistent and in alignment with the individual that you wish to be. That would be my advice. By the end of the day, I can't possibly do a bad habit because I have this large stack of good habits telling me and my subconscious that I am a person with good habits. I believe this identity shift, which James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, a tremendous book. If you're having trouble implementing good habits, then I suggest you read this particular text. But again, it's not about the habits you do, it's more about the person that you become. So instead of asking yourself what habits you should have, ask yourself what kind of person has the habits that you want to become. If you have aspirations of being an entrepreneur, do you think an entrepreneur gets up early or sleeps in late? That's your decision to make. Maybe he stays up later and rises later. Does he work out at home? Does he go to the gym? Does he fast? What does he eat? Create in your mind almost like a different character. That's what you can do. You can kind of really play around with this, and you can slowly start to take steps towards the character that you want to embody. That is, I think, in my opinion, one of the most important reasons, because he who has a why can withstand any how. If you have a very good rationale of the individual that you want to become, then the bad habits will fall away in and of themselves. Have a cute mantra, have a powerful mantra, have a potent mantra. Don't be cute. Mine is real men don't bad habit, real men do good habit. That might be powerful, whichever resonates with you. I don't have any particular mantra that pertains to the personality I would like to become. I have visualizations which I think are more potent in my personal opinion. The only mantra that I particularly have is let it be, let it go. And this way I find myself more and more in the present moment, which is the only thing that is fundamentally real. The only real thing is you watching this video right now, your consciousness enveloped in this very moment. Tomorrow doesn't exist, an hour ago doesn't exist, yesterday didn't exist. The only thing that is real is now. If you can fully marry your consciousness with the present moment, then you become a manifestation of the divine. You become universe, you become consciousness. You have literally united your mind with all of that is to be. And in this way you have an infinite potential in where to go, and you can really kind of become the designer of your own reality. One of the most life-changing books for me will always be The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's been a while actually since I mentioned that book on this channel, but for me it's the most profound book. I find myself coming back to it whenever I'm having particularly let's say neurosis or struggles or deep contemplations. It never fails to give me everything that I need, and everything that I need is in the moment right now. An infinite web consciousness of possibility, an infinite field of possibility is available at your fingertips. But most of you don't live here, you live in here, or you live in here. I want you to live in this, right? Unify the mind with the heart, with the moment, with the consciousness around you. But the problem is most people are heady, talking heads. They live in here. Ideas, what do I do? What do I be? Where do I go? Drop it and notice that the only important thing is right here, right now. You go here. This is the moment right now. And again, with that potential, you can do whatever you would like. Some other suggestions here: real men don't fantasize, or whatever your chosen mantra is. I think that maybe the temptation for me is sometimes mantras can take you out of the moment. Perhaps it can be it can act like an anchor if you're having fantasies. I think that's probably where the utility comes from mantras more than any other. The interesting way to explain a mantra is that it's an asana, it's a posture for the mind. So if you don't know what an asana is a yogic posture. So you have downward dog, for example, that's an asana. You have siddhasana, that is an asana. You have padmasana, that is an asana. A mantra is an asana, it's a posture, it's a position for your mind. So if you find yourself constantly going back and fantasizing on different memories, on different ideas, you can bring your body back to a posture. You can bring your mind back to a posture. And that posture might be, let it be, let it go. The posture is here. Let it be, let it go. Another one, a good one by Sadhguru that I like is, I am not this body, I'm not even this mind. I'm not this body, I'm not even this mind. Use whichever one that gives you or changes your emotional vibrancy to something that is higher than the emotion that you're experiencing. And these emotions should typically be in love, in peace, and certainly anything north of courage. And I'm referencing David Hawkinson's scale in case you are wondering where those emotions fall on that chart. So anything north of courage, you've got peace, you've got enlightenment, you've got tranquility, you've got love. Love is a very, very powerful emotion that will allow you to dispel lust. If lust is the darkness, then light is love. Gentlemen, if you have a combination of these things and you execute them consistently every single day, then I see no reason for you to forego the demon of sexualization and licentiousness in our current culture. These are not theories, these are facts, and facts should be synthesized into wisdom via practical application. You understand? Speak soon.